Welcome back to another episode of Jamin's Daily, episode number 95. More updates on the epic charity boxing match between me and Martin Pena. Once again, my guest, say hello to all the people around the world.
Hello, everybody. My last name's Pina, by the way. I think he's doing it on purpose. Like he wants me to get all gassed up.
I keep thinking I say Pina. Maybe my Pina sounds like Pena. Pina. Right? Does it also have the little? Does it have the little squiggly thing on the end, like Pena?
Yes, sir.
Pina.
Literally spelled exactly like pineapple in Spanish.
Yeah, I like pineapple. So Pina.
I'm surprised. I figured you'd get some mileage out of the last name. There we go. That's
Martin Pineapple.
There we go.
That's a cool nickname. That could be when you're walking in, Martin Pineapple Pena. See, you're right. I do say it on accident.
There's a buddy from law school who always called me Marty Pineapples, and it doesn't really. It's grown on me, I guess. Okay. Yeah.
Well, you and I have Spanish surnames that are easily translated into English, which means other things. So, like Alemán is German.
Yeah.
It's weird because it's German in Spanish. It's like one of these weird things. But the word for German is Alemán, and I think Germany is Alemania or something like that, right? Yeah. And then it's a strange coincidence that then my mother's dad, that my maternal grandfather would be German, but that's just a complete coincidence on that end because my dad's name is Aleman, so that comes from my mom's side. So complete coincidence, but lo and behold, then my last name translates to German. That's cool.
Very, very serendipitous.
Those could be our nicknames. It could be Martin Pineapple Pina versus Jamin German Aleman.
I like that. I like that.
Maybe that could be for the rematch.
Yeah,
I don't want to steal.
I've got an immediate rematch clause in my contract.
Yeah, and you certainly. I don't want to mess up. And you probably got everything this elaborate, plan in your mind, what you're going to do already. So I don't want to mess it
up. Yeah, sometimes that keeps some things close to the vest.
I want to be surprised. I definitely want to be surprised, and
I've been light on details this whole way through.
Be in the moment, but we are gonna have to do some kind of, whether it's virtual or maybe I'll go up. Maybe we can go up the week before. But we really need to do not like a dress rehearsal, but if we really want to have everybody at least like a legitimate walk-in, which I think would be fun. Have a legitimate walk-in to where we can make it look cool and the cameras are right and it works out right. Mm-hmm. We can't just show up an hour before it starts and get that done right. So if we're going to go through all of this, definitely have to get there and map it out on where we're coming from, because we don't even know the layout of the gym either.
Yeah.
Where we're going to be coming from. So are there two separate, like, can you come out of here, then I come out of there, So we got to look into that. The logistics. Those are the minor details that will make or break the event.
The pageantry. Of course. The event.
The event, exactly. And that's part of sports. That's what makes sports fun, is the pageantry as well. They go hand in hand.
100%, brother.
So now that the folks at home know what this episode is about, we're talking about amateur boxing. And recently, it's been in the news for a couple of days. Mm-hmm. There was a charity. They stole our idea, basically. Okay. They stole our idea, decided to have a boxing match for charity. who does this, and they're young. So one of them ends up dying. There were several about. This is all kind of breaking news, right? What do you know?
So what I do know is that they've apparently they've done it for years, and like it's like in Salt Lake City, or it's in Utah. I'm not sure exactly where in Utah, but it's like a fraternity puts it on, right? And I mean, it's the way they described it, like as sort of an annual charity event. I'm surprised that like it was some of the description. Well, I mean, apparently the attorney of the young man who died, he's made statements to the effect of, there were oversights and safety sort of protocols and things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who knows how much of that is true? Maybe he's trying to try the case in the court of public opinion, right?
Sure. No,
but
I before we got on here, I was looking at an article online, and I believe it was maybe only the second one that I had looked at, but it did have some new details. One was a lot of the info coming from the deceased attorney and their family, right? But there was also what was breaking on that second article was they had some stills, some shots, some video from not video, some shots from I think video from a phone of the event showing him in the ring. What was his name? Nathan, I think. Nathan Valencia.
Something like that. Yeah, I know he had a Hispanic last name.
He had Hispanic, but he almost. I've seen a photo. He looked like he had some Asian, like maybe he was Filipino
or something. Yeah,
for sure. But he was like a kinesiology major, 20 years old, and in the photo, they're in a legitimate ring, and they have headgear and gloves on. All right. So it's not. It wasn't like this was done in the back. Again, like what we're trying to do as well is have some precautions. This wasn't like in the back of some frat house, and they just put up a.
It wasn't like out of old school, whatever that movie was, right? Like wasn't anything like that.
No, from the camera or from the picture that I saw, they're legitimately in a boxing ring, and I mean, it looks a lot about what it looks like what we're trying to do. They're wearing gym, shorts. It looks like they have almost like ring, they're not like in freaking tennis shoes. It doesn't look like, and they have headgear and gloves. So I'm thinking, man, but this is what I figured happened. If I'm pure speculation because I wasn't there, and this was also the last fight. Apparently, they were like the main event. So these guys are getting after each other because it's been ruled a homicide, and you would know, you're a lawyer, just because it's a homicide just means you were killed at the hands of another, but it doesn't mean it was criminal. So this is what this article was talking about, that it's been ruled a homicide. He died from blunt force. All right. Mm-hmm. But is it criminal? Because, he probably voluntarily.
Oh yeah, this is a mutual combat. Like it's like a classic. It's like your intro to criminal law sort of thing where they give you a little hypothetical about a boxing match or something gone awry. It's one of those things where you assume a lot of you're going in there to hit each other, right? Like it's you can't criminalize that behavior when you've got two consenting individuals, and it's in a control setting. Amateur boxing is a sport in this country, right? Like I mean. And the expectation is that you're trying to inflict physical damage on the other person. Not like football, like an accidental death in football or hockey. Like the point of this is to hurt the other person, right? I mean, that's kind of how it works.
Or you can score. To an extent, you're scoring points. Somebody like you can look at somebody as great as Floyd Mayweather, and I'm not going to say that getting punched doesn't hurt, but Floyd Mayweather's 50-0, and after some of his fights, his opponents, it wasn't like he was lumping them up,
Yeah,
he was just.
That's a good point, like a good distinction, and actually more so to amateur boxing, like Olympic style boxing is point based, right? Like I mean, so is professional boxing, but like the way fights are scored, like at the amateur level, is a little bit different, right? Than in like in the pros, even like the gloves, and I could be remembering this incorrectly, but if you notice in like Olympic boxing, they'll have like the front of the glove said like it's white usually, and I believe that's got something to do with the way the points are
The
scored.
way
The
the
way
point.
like
Okay, that's new.
yeah,
I do recognize the different how that glove is, and now it
yeah.
makes sense
I
that
could be
if
completely wrong about that,
depending
but
on how they're scoring it, because it could even make sense too if you're wearing headgear and the way you're scoring a point and touching your glove in a real boxing match, you may never even have made contact with that person's face because they're wearing this thing that's bulging out of their head, literally making their head bigger. Wearing headgear is a bigger target.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, by wearing headgear, you legitimately are giving your opponent a bigger target to hit. It's just, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, the what offsets it is, well, you're adding cushion. So
Yeah, and then I guess the way to sort of dispute the force and all that good stuff. And there's some pretty like high tech headgear out there, I guess.
because
Um,
you're also sacrificing some visibility as well,
and
no doubt.
protecting your skin. You're like you a lot of. I mean, you can still get cut, but that's one of the big ones, right? You see these dudes and they, these
Bro,
gashes and
we're
you
gonna
know. Oh yeah,
we're gonna Vaseline up. I'm
oh
gonna take
yeah,
a bottle.
dripping, right?
I'm gonna take a shitload of Vaseline, dude. I'm just gonna layer it up a little and then put that thing on. I'm
Yeah,
not taking any chances.
yeah. No, this is the moneymaker right here. I can't afford to look all busted up afterwards. You know.
But chicks do dig scars, bro. Okay, chicks
That's a
dig
good point.
scars. So if you have like a really cool one right there that's kind of coming out, or one right there on the chin, like Clint Eastwood, the chin ones, or what's his solo, Indiana
Harrison Ford.
Jones, Harrison Ford. Remember, he's got one right here too. Chicks dig the scar. That's what I
Yeah.
heard.
I mean, at this point, I think I'm on the wrong side of 30 to. I mean, I'm not sure that demographic, that
That
age group
group,
of women,
yeah.
would be. Plus, I don't know how my wife would feel about it. Yeah.
So you need to find out and then relay that to the folks at home because they're super interested now. They want to know, what does Martin Pina's wife think about his scar? I'm serious. You should phone in. Next time we do this, we're gonna have like phone in. We're gonna take calls.
Right.
We should do
And
something
she
like that.
probably
That
be
would be
talking all
hilarious.
kinds of trash.
That
You
would be
know.
hilarious. But what would be cool is we can try to get calls from like around the world. We'll do like a Facebook Live and boost it and like no limits, so they can just call from wherever. And that's how we'll get. It will be like, what was that? This was like an internet sensation at one point. It was like this roulette where it was like a social media thing, but this is like 10 years ago, where you would push a button and it would like spit, and all of a sudden you'd be FaceTiming with some random person.
Oh, chat roulette is what it was called.
Hey, was it chat roulette or something, right? I think it
Yeah, such a
was.
wild concept, and it took off for a little bit.
It was a big. It wasn't a fad. It was like a big fad, and the reason why it works is you gotta pull all the resources. So I think if we include the entire world, Martin, we might get one person to call. All right, so
Maybe
that's that's the
maybe a translator, right? But
that's the logic. That's the logic on that.
for these Toronto guys that
Well,
are going to fight each other.
this is and we can maybe take their predictions. That's what we can do. Also, before the fight, we're gonna do a Facebook Live, and we're gonna invite people, and then we're gonna have an online a poll because they always do that before real fights. You gotta have the predictions and maybe do an online because
The underdog,
online polls are super accurate. So I bet
of course.
whoever wins that is probably gonna win.
Mm-hmm.
But you still need to tune in, folks, and donate. But let's get back to this tragedy, this young man dying. Because do you know how
So
many
that it was in
rounds
Vegas, actually, University of Las Vegas.
he? Yes, he was a kinesiology student at UNLV, and from the video as well, he looks in shape. Okay, he's 20 years old and in shape. They only fought 3 rounds, so I don't know if it was 3 3-minute rounds or what. But you know, you can only take. I have heard on some of these tough men competitions where there's been some people who've been seriously injured, brain
Mm-hmm.
dead, or I don't know even if there's been a death, but people who've had some catastrophic brain injury from it. But uh, this guy, you talk about 3 rounds with headgear and heavy gloves. The guy passed out. I don't know. They say minutes after the thing was over. So I don't know if that means 15 minutes after the fact. But it wasn't like he got caught and he just
Went down.
he got knocked out and then he went into some kind of seizure or something. Um, he no one is saying, it doesn't mean it's not going to be said, but no one is saying is that he just got worked real bad, but he's tough and so he took it. And that's one of the criticisms of boxing in general compared to MMA. And even MMA boxing, the boxing that goes on, or striking within MMA, and I guess it goes for amateur boxing, is that you can in some ways, or the argument is that you take more punishment because your head is getting hit more with a bigger glove, so you get hit a whole bunch over freaking 10 rounds, and so it doesn't put you out, but it's causing damage. Whereas in an MMA, you get hit 1-2 times, you're out and it's over. And it's not as devastating, I guess. You recover from that. So that's something. Have you heard that? Is that something that you heard?
So I remember, because I was a little young when the UFC first kind of burst out, and like when they had like a tournament format. But I started following it when I was pretty young, and there was, I guess, when it started gaining in popularity, there was this article I remember reading. Don't remember who the person was that was saying this. Somebody who performed some sort of study and came to this conclusion that you see more sort of extreme type of like physical trauma in like mixed martial arts because of the rules, right? Like you can elbow people, you can hit them while they're on the ground. But to your point, you don't have this accumulation of like subconcussive hits where like the target is half of the body compared to, mixed martial arts. You can end the fight in multiple different ways. And when there's no standing 8 count in MMA, right? Like, the guy goes down, you get on him and you try to finish it, versus boxing. Maybe you get rocked, which is the equivalent of what a concussion, right? And in any other sport, concussion, as soon as they figure out that's happening, they pull you out. Boxing, they give you a little bit of time to gather yourself. You go into autopilot and you continue taking punishment. And there are some people who are crazy tough who just like, they can, just basically zombie mode and go another 5-6 rounds after, getting knocked offline. And I think that's kind of, to your point, you may see more extreme injuries like snapped shin bones and stuff like that, more gory type of injuries, but none of that continuous just head trauma, right? Like, I mean, it's there, but, it's a different way to sort of.
I do feel like that's how, especially boxers who've boxed for a long time and they talk about being punch drunk.
Yeah.
You do, when you see people like Tito Ortiz or Chuck Liddell or some of these other, and I'm sure there's examples of them who are, but some of these MMA fighters, or even someone like Rampage, who have fought a lot of fights, but they're not punch drunk. And if you talk to some of these what's the guy? He fought De La Hoya. He was a welterweight, and he had a flat nose. He fought the black guy. What was his name? Damn it! But he's punch drunk bad. He can barely put words together sometimes when you hear him.
I mean, they showed a clip of Floyd Senior, right? I think it was prior to one of those Triller fights. I forget who the two guys who were. Or no, it was before the Canelo fight. They asked him something about Canelo, and he's like, going to start answering. And he kind of just like, it's like he's looking for what, like the words to respond. And he just kind of looks like he's deer in the headlights. And it was kind of sad to watch. And, I think that's precisely what you're talking about. They go from like super articulate, right? Nobody really, maybe he'd been that way for a while already. But I mean, it seems like night and day, thinking back to the fights where he was cornering, boxers and, very sort of lucid. And
for these guys, I bring it up. My father, who is having some issues, some cognitive issues. Well, I mean, he's 74, but a lot of it does stem from playing football in high school and in college. and he'll
Free
tell you
CTE awareness.
he'll tell you, stories where he's concussed, he's going out there and playing and things like that, where just completely different game to what's being played now. And as they get older, so that damage is there, but then as they get older, it like kind of boom, it's like a quick onset. I'm trying to find that fight that I was talking about with Shane Mosley.
It's funny. Right before you said, I was like, "He has a flat nose." I'm thinking,
no, that dude's got a boxer's nose.
Oh yeah,
bad.
And his fighting style involved taking damage. There's some guys who will eat one to land two, or vice versa.
And it shows. This guy, if you've seen anything lately of him, I think I saw maybe within the last year or two, it was like a red carpet thing. He had some good-looking chick with him, and he was at some red carpet. I don't know what it was for. And they're asking him stuff, and he's just talking, and he's kind of fumbling, not really. He sounds a little drunk, like people sound when they're a little drunk. That's why they call it being punch drunk. He's just been punched too many times in the head. So say a prayer for this guy. I hope it doesn't lead to something later. But that comes with boxing, which is why I'm not a boxer. I'm a philanthropist. All right, I'm not a boxer. I'm a philanthropist. I'm doing this for charity. All right. Well, I mean, we could play a chess match if you really wanted to. We could do the whole Russian.
Wouldn't be as fun.
No, it wouldn't. We could do the chess and the boxing. This is like a legitimate sport in Russia or in the Eastern Bloc somewhere. They play chess.
You box for a round, and then like in the 30 seconds or minute between, right? You go and you make your move and push a little clock, and then.
Have you heard of this? Have you heard of this?
No, but that's awesome if it's true.
It is. I would not lie to you. Everything I say on this show, Jamin's Daily, is the truth in some way. It did happen, or it was at least on the internet.
And it's got to be true if it was on the internet.
I just didn't make it up. It was on the internet. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. What's true anyways nowadays? What's true? There's alternative facts.
Martin. Yeah. No, but I mean, it definitely. Right, there's safer ways to go about this. It's not lost on me that there are inherent risks associated with doing something like this. But I mean, I know you've got quite an athletic background. And
no, people do those those motor runs and things like that, or those weekend where they climb obstacles and they get in the mud under barbed wire and they do these things. And something like that, for me, if I didn't work, you pull a hamstring, you can tear an ACL, dislocate a shoulder, some crap like that. So when I'm talking to my family or people about it, I was like, I said, that BMX that I have out there, every time I go and ride that, I'm at some possibility of, some bodily injury.
Yeah.
Does it mean I'm going to die? No, I'm not. Unless I get hit by a car, I'm probably not going to die. But can I fall off this pretty bad and hurt myself pretty, dislocate my elbow or some bullshit like that?
Land on your head or something?
Some like a serious, you dislocate your elbow, you just don't shake it off. You know what I mean? And I got to go to the hospital kind of shit. It is what it is. It's a cheap thrill. That's part of the fun. Or else, why would you kind of do it? It's just part of it. And
massive egos too. This guy.
You get massive ego. That it helps. You have to have a little bit of toxic masculinity in you. Hey, we're gonna prove this. Because right away you could have been like, nah, I don't want to do that. Could have been like, that's stupid, Jamin. I mean, I'm not gonna fight.
There was that immediate moment when you threw down the gauntlet, and I was like, yeah, all day. And then I was like, dude, what are you doing, man? You're old and you're fat. Like you should think about this. But it was too far at that point,
you fell right into my trap because that was the trap I was setting. I was like, I want to go. I'm taking this real far. And when he says yes, then it's gonna put me. I'm gonna have to say yes too. So that's what I was hoping for. I was kicking. I don't know. I was stirring the pot.
Kicking the hornet's nest. It's actually been great for me. Like I've gotten in significantly better shape since we had that conversation, which was months ago at this point.
Yeah.
So enough time we're already seeing positives. I
agree. I've been working more like with my mental game though. I've been working a lot more on not on my physical body, because I just feel like I needed to get my mental game right.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been just visualizing a lot of visualizing move slipping,
Mm-hmm.
some check right hooks and that kind of stuff. And visualize,
Yeah.
seeing it happen.
Visualize an attack.
Exactly. Then as time gets closer, then I'll get on the treadmill, watch what I eat.
Mm-hmm.
But right now I'm really focused on the when I was playing football, so I'm not the greatest athlete, right? But remember my dad was a football coach. So I guarantee I watched more film than any of my teammates. No doubt. Okay. And it helps on offense for sure. But it wasn't like we were running some kind of spread and we're reading plays. You just ran what the fuck they called, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on defense, it makes huge difference. Okay. There was games where I'd make a play, maybe I pick off a pass or you make a play, and it's because I knew what the hell was going to happen before it even happened. Because I had already seen this down in distance, this formation. Oh, they're going to run this.
The way the linemen are.
They're gonna run a boot. Oh, they're probably this is perfect. They're gonna run this bootleg. I've seen it on film. They've done it in 7 games. This is the time. And so then, because I know what's happening when it is unfolding, you don't cover the guy right away.
The ball, yeah.
Because you know where he's going. So because you want to bait him, you want to bait the quarterback too. So when that tight end is dragging across, and I'm playing it, and then boom, you break. But it wasn't because I had some great speed and I reacted to this play. Half of it was I saw it coming, so I got there in time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's always, I don't know. That's probably not good. I don't know if that transitions, if that works well with boxing.
Well, you need like hours of film of me in particular, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where it kind of I imagine you watch. So fighters watch each other, right? Like they watch older fights, and he loads up with the right. You got to tell he gives away right before he's going to throw. Stuff like that. I mean, of course, right? And you see it happen mid-fight sometimes. Like some guys who adjust well. There's a guy who just keeps like he's ducking off really hard. Kind of bending at the waist off to his right, and eventually you see that guy start timing it and sort of feints to the right, and then throws like a mean uppercut, and good night.
And that's what's important, to have a really good corner, because a lot of times that's what your corner is supposed to be picking up on as well. So when you get back, they're telling you these things. Hey man, when you're doing this, he's doing that. Now you need to follow.
The hook is there. The hook is there. Throw the hook. Yeah, and you hear it in the fights, right?
See, but I'm gonna go with Mike Perry, Mike Platinum Perry.
Oh God,
I'm gonna
he doesn't have a camp at all. Like that guy doesn't even like.
That dude was one time he had his girlfriend cornering him. Okay, another time he had a fan, like he did he auctioned it off, dude. He made money and just had some random, because like apparently there's no real rule, like there's no sanctioned. That part's not sanctioned or regulated within the sanctioning bodies about your corner. So your corner doesn't have to be a legitimate anything. They could just be your girlfriend. Okay.
Yeah, evidently, Mike Perry.
And as Mike Perry was talking about how I don't need a corner because they're yelling this stuff at me. I'm not even paying attention anyways. When I get in there, I'm locked in the zone. Just me. So whatever they're telling me, it doesn't matter.
He's also the guy who walked out of there with his nose like this one time.
He's an idiot. So I'm not, people at home, I'm not like sticking up for the guy. But at least he has a at least he's made his mind up and he's sticking with it. And it's not completely crazy because he backs it up with some reasoning. Okay. So then he's like, listen, I don't need the corner because I can't even listen to them when I'm in the heat of battle. So it doesn't help. Mm-hmm. Second, the fact is when they're telling me this and I can't even hear it to help me, I have to pay these knuckleheads a lot of money. I got to pay these knuckleheads a lot of money too. It's not free. They're not doing it for, this isn't charity. So why do I want to pay them a lot of money for them to give me advice on fight night when I can't even hear it? So he was trying to get No, I gave him some respect. I was like, listen, this is a terrible mistake, but you can tell he at least thought of. This is not a good decision, but at least he's thought about it.
It's a terrible calculated mistake, right? Not like he just. I mean, because you get the impression that he just like, this guy's an idiot. What is he doing? But I mean, you don't get to where he got in the sport, right? Not that he was some sort of force in the UFC, but I mean, like you look at the guys who go in there and they just lose a bunch of fights and they get cut. After they fulfill
the legitimate professional athlete. I mean, he's making weight.
Even the guys who get mopped up, I guarantee you throw that guy on a regional circuit, he's gonna clean up whatever roster they've got in those smaller promotions. Like it's just you're looking at
the best of the best.
So even a guy that like Mike Perry, who's taking a bunch of losses, he'd still any day of the week go out there and really whoop somebody's behind.
Well, that's why I would watch him. Mike Perry bare knuckle fighting event. If I didn't have to,
he did one, I think, right?
No, he's doing. No, he's just signed up. I don't think he's had his first fight yet. That's where he went after UFC. He signed a deal with this bare knuckle fighting, and since we were talking about the fight game, because we're fixing to get into it, we're amateurs, but I want to say once we get this first bout under our belt, we're gonna be like. When it comes to our friends in our secret society, they're gonna be bums. They're gonna have nothing on us. They're gonna be a bunch of pansy spectators, is what you are, dog. We're gladiators over here. You're spectators.
Dying breed.
So you put some respect on my. You better put some respect on my name, all right? I feel that's how we're gonna roll after this.
Walking out with my chest out,
Win or lose, bro. There's no losers because we're raising money for charity.
Exactly. Awesome. I mean, there's technically going to be a winner and a loser, right? Yes, but winner, loser, winner, loser, winner, loser.
We can. I
have the worst trash talk ever. Yeah.
I've come to grips with the possibility of losing. I'm going to go the McGregor route and be like, start just making some excuses and throwing out profanities.
My leg.
Throw out a bunch of profanities. And then demand.
Make it real personal. Right?
Yes. I told you I'm not going to say anything about your wife, but I may say something about your dog. Okay? What's your dog's name?
Don't get me. I'm not even gassed up. I got 3.
I may have to say something about your dogs, like, "Oh, you better, go like McGregor style." I may have to threaten your dog. If I see your dog, I'm going to kick him. Something like that.
That's I'm here for it, man. It makes it fun. Well, although we seem to dial back the trash talking a little bit, which is a little bizarre, right? Which is a little unusual for you and me.
Well, when you said it best is that, and I think Mike Tyson even said something about it, is that people get too comfortable talking a lot of smack behind this. Yeah. Okay, but then look how much more polite you get when it's just FaceTime. Man. Now imagine you're in the same room as that person. I imagine our manners would improve even.
Especially when you're going to be standing across the ring from that other individual, right? And they're probably going to remember everything you said. And whether it's somewhere in there, right? Like I said, all these things, man. I got to make good on all these things I said now, and then pressure starts to build up a little bit,
Well, can you imagine? There's so many examples of actual boxing boxing matches or MMA fights where there's this big buildup and then there is a loser and they get knocked out, especially if it's quick, like when McGregor beat Aldo. That was about one of the biggest. I'm talking about for Aldo. I mean, the dude went back to his deal, cried, probably inconsolable. Can you imagine like replaying that forever?
He hadn't lost in years. Like he hadn't lost a fight. He had like a ridiculous number of like title defenses up to that point. Like it's wild. Like from the WEC days, he was in a completely different organization, like that folded into the UFC. And I mean, he just ran through that entire division. And the sad thing is that especially in a sport like MMA, right? You see guys who get flash knocked out like that, and generally speaking, there's at least room to argue, hey, they need to run it back because maybe this guy beats him, smokes him, 99 times out of 100, but we didn't see anything, right? Like he got caught. It's a win. It's a legitimate win, right? But we didn't really see, how they stacked up. I mean, you could say, well, he very clearly showed he's a better fighter.
Yeah.
I mean, you watch Dustin Poirier and
agree.
Conor McGregor, right? Like they've had he knocked the dude out cold in their first fight. And it's a different story now.
I think McGregor at that point, because you look at who he beat, and that's why I never understood
Eddie Alvarez,
the McGregor hate, because he beat Poirier early on. He beat Max Holloway early on.
Very early.
These guys were all hungry, up and coming prospects, all at the same time, right? And McGregor beat him. I mean, he did. All right, and then he goes on and beats, like you said, Eddie Alvarez, who was a champ and world class for a long time. And the thing about McGregor, which if I was his manager, is that he has nowhere. Like he's already been like to the top of the mountain, and so every fight has to be like he's fighting nothing but animals, dude. Like the best of the best. Like, if I was him, I was like, dude, you should fight Nate Diaz next. Okay, a slower target. It's not going to be an easy fight because the dude's a hell of a fighter. You might lose, but I think you can get off on him a little better, and he's
and people want to see that. People will get excited about it.
Exactly, and that's a big sell. Exactly, that's a big sell also. So you run that. Trying to fight Dustin Poirier or Justin Gaethje or
like Michael Chandler or all these dudes, monsters.
In those fights, he can win them. I would imagine. It's not that he's overmatched,
lose in spectacular fashion.
But he can also very easily lose. I mean, he can fight you can fight 3 fights against some lesser comp, rack up some wins, and then come back. But if you look at
you got that built-in sort of excuse though, right? Like I fight it, I don't take tune-up. Every time he loses, it's the same thing, right? Like I'm not like these other bums who are taking the easy fight. Well, maybe you should. Maybe you should take a couple because then you come back and you're demanding a title shot immediately after getting smoked by a guy who wasn't the champion. I mean, it's just. He should
because look, okay, so you lose to Khabib, all right, that's no one's fault. No one faults that. But if you look at this, people like to say that, but I watch all these fights. I know you do too. Khabib did that to Justin Gaethje, but I think he beat him like in the 2nd or 3rd round. He did that to Justin Poirier. I think he put him out in the 2nd or 3rd round as well.
No, the second, I think you're right.
You look at Conor. Conor has fought Khabib about as well as any of his recent opponents. I mean, made it to the 4th. He made it to the 4th round. People like to say he got mauled. He got caught with a punch, which helped. But to me, being mauled means you leave cut up. Like you got caught with a bunch of elbows and you get fucked up. Like you get ground and pounded. Being out grappled, which is what happens. So yeah, I guess if someone out grapples you, grapplers like to talk about mauling people. Yeah, if you like to grab and throw people around and hit them with these types of punches, yeah, it hurts. And he submitted him, but it wasn't. To me, there's Instagram photo of McGregor like 2 hours after the fight, and like he's going out clubbing,
wired to the gills, probably.
Yeah, but he's going clubbing. He's not going.
I'll tell you what, there's sort of a counter.
He's not going to the hospital because he just got mauled and beaten badly.
There's sort of a counter to that, right? Like the counterpoint to that being, so you remember when he fought Floyd Mayweather, and all of these pundits were like, he acquitted himself well. He went. Oh, he almost goes the distance. You watch that, and I mean, and then even McGregor's comments after, like, "Oh, I turned Floyd Mayweather into a Mexican because Floyd Mayweather was coming forward the whole fight." Like you didn't make him do that. He didn't respect your power. He didn't respect your striking ability. He did something he had none in his entire career, and then arguably carried the guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like he got as far as Mayweather wanted him to get in that fight, right? Like, I mean, Mayweather could have probably ended that much sooner. And Khabib said something similar in that I wanted to punish this guy. I wasn't going to give him an easy out.
I don't think so much.
And the other thing is, like, when you're talking about a grappler and Conor McGregor with the slick boxing and the best hands, he got dropped by this guy who has the most, let's just call it unorthodox striking style. I mean, he's just flailing out. So I mean, to say, well, he went longer with Khabib than anybody else did. He also got knocked down by a guy who's not known for his stand up game. You know what I'm saying? Like
And we're
there's
talking about,
and it was
we're
very
talking about,
personal too
so
with those two.
on that situation, you're talking about one punch. That, yeah, he knocked him down, but he didn't knock him out. I mean, he got
No,
up and
but
they
when
fought.
McGregor's doing the one punch, right? Then it's
No,
like
wait,
it's the statement, right? Like,
no, but if he knocked him out, if he would have landed that punch on Khabib and Khabib like got back up and it wasn't a game changing fight or punch, because it really wasn't. It caught him off guard. It wasn't a sleeper type of punch. It's the kind of punch that a good grappler can get off on a striker because the striker is so concerned about the takedown that's what helps Khabib in many ways. But the point I was saying is, this is where I just disagree because I watch a lot of MMA, as you do. I've seen fights in which people go to the hospital because they just gotten their asses beat, and sometimes both of them means mutually. All right,
mm-hmm.
But then
the winner's just sitting right there in the next ambulance over from the guy.
Exactly, and I've seen fights where somebody gets taken down and beaten bloody, and it gets stopped. And I've seen them where somebody submits somebody, things like that. To me, again, when I saw that fight, and if you were to watch it again, I still think that, yeah, he lost, arguably. If it would have gone to distance and he didn't get submitted in the fourth, and if he didn't knock him out in the fifth, he was going to lose that probably 4-1. Okay? Maybe. It could have been 5 altogether. But who knows? People it could have been 3-2.
Well, that's a big thing. He's like the only guy who's ever won a round against Khabib.
The whole point is, I just don't feel like he was dominated, especially if you're talking about the other people who have fought Khabib. It's like, well, I mean, this is what he's done to everybody else, and nobody likes to talk about how he mauled Gaethje, or he mauled, what's it called?
I guess maybe more because we're talking about like a sustained beating over multiple rounds. I mean, there's even a clip where the round ends and it ends with McGregor on the bottom. Right, the fight's not over, but the round ends.
Yeah.
And Khabib's there saying you want to talk now? Let's talk. He's just jawing at the guy, and McGregor's like, it's just business, man. Like a little scared little kid sitting there in the corner. And I'll be the last one to say, oh, that guy's baby. I'll beat him. No, McGregor could walk in my door right now, and I would not repeat what I just said to his face, right? But I mean, I think there's definitely something to how personal Khabib took it and how he wanted to win that fight, because he wouldn't be the first fighter who, let's say that, and I'm trying to think of a good example of a guy who's not a striker and who made it a point in a particular matchup, some sort of grudge match. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to strike with this guy just to show him that I'm going to beat him at his own game, sort of thing.
Okay, but if you, and so I get your point, but then, so it's one thing. But this is where, again, I just disagree. I saw that fight and Khabib didn't destroy Conor McGregor. He won that fight like you're supposed to do, but he didn't bloody him up. He didn't catch him with 10 unanswered punches, where he's just wailing on his head, ground and pounding him. None of that happened. Conor played great defense from his guard the entire time. He just couldn't do it for 5 rounds because Khabib is the best when it comes to that. Eventually, he's gonna get you down and do that. Grapple and catch you in a submission, torque you in a way, and win. But again, he caught him. Again, it was from a kind of
over a looping overhand right. And then he,
Well, that one. So yes, that was a strike that he caught. But when he finished Conor, it was from a takedown, and it was from a neck twist. It wasn't a neck crank. Yeah, it was like a neck crank. It wasn't even like a guillotine or anything. It was a neck crank. All right. It wasn't, again, from getting assaulted 15 times on response. I've seen fights that end when somebody's elbow.
You ever had someone put you in the neck crank before?
No, I get it, but
I think it'll rip your jaw off your skull. It's a very painful thing.
But yes. So it's painful. But the point
I guess maybe the difference of opinion is when I think of mauling, I don't think of this guy just necessarily having to bloody somebody up. He basically imposed his will on the guy for the entire fight, right? And then McGregor does have a bit of a reputation for giving up a position. I mean, maybe he's tired. Maybe he doesn't want to be there anymore. When Nate Diaz choked him out, I mean, he was about to get ground and pounded. He was about to get, quote unquote,
sure. That's
but
why
instead of doing that, he just
gave up
turned over onto his stomach and he's like, choke me out.
Yeah,
You know?
certainly.
But I think there's something to that, you know, and I think there's probably a number of different factors, right, that played into how that fight went. Let's not forget when it was over, this dude jumped after he wins, jumps on the cage and starts fighting all the guys.
Was crazy. That was
so
crazy.
There was definitely it was not a typical Khabib fight.
But
you know?
what I would say is you take all those theatrics out of it, okay? Because that's what Conor brings to the game. If you take all the theatrics out of it, and it's just some dude named Conor McGregor is fighting Khabib undefeated, and he fights him in that way, and you just watch the tape and forget about everything and see like, hey, who's this guy? You come, I'll tell you, you come away from it completely different. You don't think like, man, yeah, Khabib won, but I seen him do this to a bunch of other fighters. And this guy,
arguably, he mauls everybody.
This guy, but he hasn't. Like when we fought Al Iaquinta, he didn't maul him. Al Iaquinta, that was he won the interim belt.
And that was surprising. Like that was surprising. I mean, even when that happened, the MMA world was like, "Whoa!" Nobody expected Al Iaquinta to fight that well against Khabib.
And if you think about it, and this is part of grappling.
Styles make fights.
He has not knocked anybody. He's never knocked out anybody. He's
also never lost.
He's neck cranking people. So it's a grappling game. He's grappling people and he's putting them in. He's submitting them. So that's great. I mean, if he stays in long enough, he was going to meet somebody who is as good as a grappler as somebody. I mean, it
happens to everybody, right?
But
I think it's definitely. I mean, I see what you're saying, and I don't disagree with. I think the perception that McGregor brings up into a lot of it was his own doing. Right, the world was ready for him to go out there and shit the bed. Right, I mean that's what everybody's dancing on his grave every time he loses, myself included. I can't stand the guy. I really like watching his striking because it is slick. Right, like I do enjoy, but I want him to lose every time I see him step in the cage, and that's not lost on me. And that colors my perception of how that, no matter how objective I may try to be. Right, like every one of his
Mayweather, McGregor, I guarantee you probably learned a lot during that whole build-up in his talk with Mayweather as well. Is that because after that Mayweather, he really did take a sharper turn to be a heel. Okay, and Mayweather told him, said, "Bro, you will sell more pay-per-views from people who want to see you lose than from the people who are your fans."
Every single one of them. Every single pay-per-view he's on.
And if they both
$70 for.
The worst thing is that for people to be ambivalent, if they don't care, then that's your problem. So you either got to make them love you or they got to hate you, or you want a mixture of both. And so he's got a massive following too. He's really pushed for that because early on in his career, he really wasn't, even though he was a great trash talker. Like
he didn't make it personal the way he does.
Yeah, when he lost to Nate Diaz, if you see those post-fight interviews with him, he was very humble.
It takes a little bit though. You give him a day or two, and he was.
But in the aftermath, immediate aftermath, he was very humble, talking about how he didn't really adjust his. He probably did too many wheel kicks. He talked about how he kind of tired himself out, and he thought he was going to.
This is an excuse train that he tried.
Yeah. He goes. One of the things was that Nate Diaz is 170, so when I hit those boys at 145 or 150, they go down. I just hit a 6 foot tall man who weighs 200 pounds. A month ago.
McGregor walks around probably weighing close to 200 pounds.
I got it, but the point was, which is true, is that he's punching a bigger man who he thought he could put out like he does all the other guys, and he didn't. And so that's
the fight game, though, man. I mean, like you lose, you make mistakes, you lose. You don't prepare for your opponent, you lose.
No, and that's why. And so he lost, and so then he said, you know what, we're going to do a rematch, and we're going to fight at the same weight class, everything the same. And when he came in, he had it was a great fight.
Good strategy. He won the first 3 rounds, and he was like, now I'm not going to get hit anymore. It was a great strategy.
The thing is,
and then Nate Diaz, he relies on a guy taking him into the 4th or 5th round with a guy still, willing to exchange with him, and like he's just banking on this guy's going to wilt before I get a doctor stoppage here from my face just gushing blood. Which McGregor, I'm not doing that.
Nate Diaz isn't even trying to win fights anymore. He's
Leon Edwards fight.
Yeah, he's
He
not even
wobbled him,
trying.
and he's like,
Yeah, he's not even trying to win fights anymore because he doesn't have to. If he's this competitive in these fights, he's gonna make. He'll be given more opportunities to fight. Is what it
Chael
boils down.
Sonnen said he was like he was talking about it, the Diaz brothers, Conor McGregor. I forget who like basically he was like all these knuckleheads need to just when they finish their UFC contracts just fight each other over and over again because
Yes.
it's like compelling to watch.
Dude, I'm so glad you mentioned this because this is a perfect segue into something that's going on in the fight game that is where we're at, where we're kind of getting into is the whole charity. It's not charity, but the whole, you know, prize fighting for what it is because in
like
the
celebrity fights kind of
yeah,
thing.
people don't really care to see that much other than UFC, hardcore fans. But like you look at perhaps the pound for pound best Kamaru Usman.
Kamaru Usman, yeah.
Kamaru Usman, okay? This guy, he may officially be number one pound for pound. But nobody gives a crap. Nobody really wants to see him fight. I mean, he fought Kobe Covington. It was a great fight.
They wanted to watch Kobe Covington get knocked out.
Okay. But yeah, so people watch that. But I guarantee you the numbers for them two fighting wouldn't be nearly as good as if Kobe fights Masvidal. The pay-per-view will be
There's some like baked in bad blood there.
3-4 times more. Also, Masvidal has a bigger fan base, more known.
Bigger mouth.
Bigger mouth.
So I haven't been a fan of Masvidal for like from the YouTube days when he was like fighting guys and that's under Kimbo slices.
And that's where this whole the Triller fights and the Jake Paul fights, all these things are coming in because they've tapped into something and they've realized. And boxing has been getting away with this for years. That we're putting these fights. Yeah, occasionally you get great competition fighting each other, but we all know for at least the good prospects, they're fighting nothing but tomato cans for 20
built up, like padding the record before they get that super fight.
Okay, and then for a long time they avoid some of these super fights for a long time as well. Okay, well, the thing is, nobody cares. I don't. Does anybody care that?
No, outside of Facebook boxing forums, nobody's gonna be complaining about so and so ducking somebody.
Yeah, or Jake Paul. Jake Paul didn't have a bunch of amateur fights in him. He's
looking pretty. Oh man, we'll get into that here also.
No, he looks good. Continue. He's training, but the whole point is
he's taking it serious.
If you get two people who are prize fighters. They don't have to be ranked. They don't have to have any kind of belt. They don't have to have anything for it to be entertaining.
Ashes in the seats.
To be entertaining and sell a lot of pay-per-views. Okay?
That's the name of the game, selling pay-per-views, right? I mean, at the end of the day.
Like you said, people would pay, they just all fight each other. Once they all get done with UFC, and then, hey, let's just fight each other. I'm going to fight Nate Diaz. Then I'm going to fight Nick Diaz, McGregor. I'm going to fight Nate Diaz. Then I'm going to fight his brother.
And I would buy that pay-per-view.
No, of course. And then I'm going to fight Masvidal.
Yeah, that's the other guy that Joe was talking about.
Yeah, no one's going to care about any of these things. And they'll sell a lot of pay-per-view.
Let's care about pound-for-pound rankings, who's earned the title shot. I mean, and the UFC to an extent picked up on this when they made that BMF belt, that Masvidal and Nate Diaz. Because, I mean, it's where you look at it from like a competitive standpoint, kind of a farce, right? Like, come on, you're kidding. But was I excited to see who was going to win that belt? You know it, right? Like I watched that fight.
I was excited. I enjoyed the build-up, like we talked about. It's not just the fight. I do enjoy. You have to know these people to be invested. When these are just random people, and of course you want to watch a good fight because you're going to be invested and have these fighters that you really like, and then the fight could be trash. Okay, so it's all about the fight, obviously, but don't need the rankings are meaningless. They really are, and they would be smart just to get away with them altogether because it doesn't mean if you're number one, it doesn't matter anyways. It doesn't matter what your ranking is in terms of your title opportunity. So why do you even have them? I guess
it used to matter. Like they're like boxing has like mandatory challengers and certain like sanctioning bodies. The UFC kind of turned that on its head, right? Like in terms of who they award title shots to and things like that. and that's the thing where that sort of started. I mean, at least that whole movement started, right? And I mean, I think to an extent it helps you sort of legitimize the calling it a sport, right? Because
Uh-huh.
there is.
Well, yes. Yeah. I think early on that's what they were trying to do. Yes, that does make sense on having weight classes and we're gonna have rankings. So it does
Mm-hmm.
legitimize it. But now you just need I guess they can still have rankings, but you know what I think UFC would be good? Because there would still be rankings like on MMA Junkie or MMAfighting.com. These sites,
Sanctioning bodies would have their own rankings and things like
they're
that.
still going to have these websites. These people are still going to put out their own rankings. But
Mm-hmm.
UFC shouldn't have an official ranking. You know, we
I
don't
mean, they
rank
might as
our,
well not at this point.
we
It's
don't
like
rank our,
ceremonial at this point.
yeah, we don't rank the fighters. They just have records. And then we put together, we have a they got I forgot what the guy's name is, but they have a guy who
Sean Selby, I think
Selby,
is
Selby, yeah, Selby. You're right on that. It's him and I think one other guy, but he's one of the main ones. He puts the fights together,
mm-hmm.
and I'm sure he uses the rankings
a
as
gauge,
a
right?
gauge. But
The
still,
styles make fights. You know, they're
styles
going to
make
try to put
fights, and
something
so
exciting
it
together.
doesn't need to be the UFC official rankings come out. He can just find rankings from. He just do a Google search, and he should know them anyways. So I think they dig themselves in a hole sometimes by giving official rankings UFC stuff.
Because then you open yourself up to the criticism where like why is a guy who's number 7 hadn't fought in 2 years, but he's an exciting name, he's going to fight the number 1, he's going to jump the line sort of thing. And I mean, whether it's a legitimate criticism or not, that's what you're exposing yourself to through having, official ranking, right? And
Yes.
and I think that's to your point. What you're saying here is that they kind of Dana White's opening himself up to being, accused of being like just like a con man, right? Like we can't trust a word that comes out of your mouth because you've got the number 2 or 3 contenders here who've been waiting, the number 1 contender, and now you're.
How many how many times has this actually happened where somebody just truly jumped the line and was so egregious? It doesn't happen that often. It normally only happens if someone's injured sometimes.
Or if the guys who were in front of him have already fought the champion and been beat handily.
Exactly. So something's coming up. There's,
Rose Namajunas, her next opponent, arguably should be Carla Esparza, right? Yes. The first woman to hold that strawweight title, the one who beat Rose Namajunas in the inaugural title fight. She's got like a 5-fight win streak, and I've seen it's not very exciting. She's not a very fun fighter to watch. She dominates some of her opponents recently.
No, she's a wrestler. Yeah, she's a wrestler.
When she's not particularly great striking is the other thing. It's not like she can get somebody on the ground and pound them into submission. And I think that has a lot to do with why the rumblings are that she's not going to get that fight with Rose Namajunas. The next one up is the Mariana, I think Rodriguez, I think is her name. She's a Brazilian, I believe. Yes. She's a great striker. It'd be a real exciting fight. And I can see why they want to make that one. And I can see why Dana White's not real excited about what if she beats Rose. Now we've got this entire this division is going to be the champion going to be this really sort of black fighter.
All that plays into it, no doubt. And so the fighters, they know it's a business. At the end of the day, like Dana White has them in checks. Like, listen, this is a business. You don't earn. You're not entitled to anything. So you earn what you're given, I guess, but you're not entitled to anything. So it's not going to happen. Her best bet is somebody getting hurt, and then she has to fill
last minute replacement. I mean, Rose Namajunas said she wants to fight her, and it'd be interesting to see how Dana sort of plays this one. I think he's going to give the fight to Carla Esparza anyway. I think there's going to be like enough. I mean, he didn't give a rat's what about pressure.
Yeah,
but I think I got a feeling he's going to cave and make the fight. That's just my bold prediction. Yeah.
Oh, you heard it first here, folks, on Jamin's Daily. Martin Pina's bold predictions when it comes to MMA, because he is a fight expert and a future amateur boxer. We're not there officially. We got to get our credentials, but it's not if, it's when, folks. Okay? Mm-hmm. This is going to happen. I hope you've been entertained with all this fight game. So not only you're getting familiar with the gladiators who are going to meet in the ring, but now they're getting some philosophy on the fight game from us as well. I think people are going to realize, hey, these knuckleheads, if they can't
They
fight,
got a
at
lot of
least they,
couch hours, you know.
yeah, maybe at least they've watched a lot of fighting. Maybe they might get in the
Yeah,
ring and stink it up, but at least they think they know what they should be doing because
like
they've
I
watched
can
it up.
I can backseat drive, you know, this whole thing, right? Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens when we actually lace them up, you know. It'd be interesting.
It's gonna be good.
But I'm a little interested though in your like what your preparation, like what like you know, I know you talked about visualizing. I know
Uh-huh.
that you set up a little
Head
maze
movement,
bag, a little.
head movement's important. So it's just so I
Mm-hmm.
can, get that going.
Yeah.
Yeah, head movement's
What else have
important.
you
Head
been
movement's
working
real
on there?
important.
You
You
know.
know, I think one of my strategies really depends on the number of rounds and the amount of time per round. I'm hoping we do like maybe 5 1 minute rounds because that's what the Lord that Mr. Lord was saying is one format. It was trust me, after 1 minute you're gonna want to rest. I was like, no,
Yeah.
I'm sure. But that gives you don't that doesn't give you a lot of time just to kind of feel out your opponent. It's not
You
like we're
would think
fighting.
so, right? But I mean,
But
like,
I mean, maybe
I
you
think the
do.
fatigue itself is going to play a big factor
Mm.
into like how because it
That's what
sounds like 1 minute that's nothing, right? Like I'm gonna before you know you're gonna be halfway through. It's gonna feel like an eternity in there.
no
It's gonna
doubt,
feel like
no doubt. Well, okay, well, you asked me something. One of my strategies going in, you'll see. All this will be proof in the pudding in that first minute. I guess I could be lying to you and do something completely different. I've been talking to people about this, but definitely the conserving energy. I'm gonna fight like a heavyweight, even though I'm
we're
5'8".
technically heavyweights right now.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna fight like a heavyweight too. So I'm not gonna
Or
go in
I think you're like a
there.
cruiserweight. I think probably where
Yeah,
you're at.
I'm not gonna be some like Dominique Cruz or somebody who's like all over the place,
Yeah, unless
trying
you
to
want to get
come.
to open a bucket after the
Yeah,
first round. I'm not
yeah,
going to be moving like
coming
that.
from trying to come from all kinds of angles and stuff and whatever. No, 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 no. I'm gonna kind of like drunken boxing. I'm just gonna walk towards you. Okay, I'm just gonna walk towards you with my hands up. Okay, and
I have an idea.
I'm gonna test that out. I'm gonna see where that goes. See where that
I get a little
goes.
bit of a slight height advantage. I'm not sure where
I'm
we
gonna
are in reach. You
see.
know,
I'm gonna see where that goes, and then open up from there. But it's definitely not going in there with the thought of conserving energy. So I really don't want to be on my toes, jab, 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 moving, and jab, 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 moving all around the place. Nah, because I think I'd fatigue pretty bad,
oh yeah, oh
real
yeah.
quick.
I mean, I think it's just it's aside from the movement and like the actual physical energy that it takes. You're talking about like an adrenaline dump. Like that.
Yeah.
That's something you got to factor in too, right? I mean, like maybe go in there with the idea that you're going to conserve energy, but you don't realize it. I'm going to try to incorporate maybe a
Yeah.
3/4 pound, and you're just like so
All of a
jacked
sudden, I
up.
start moving
You
around.
know,
Yeah, you see that a lot from amateurs who are not able to kind of stand their ground. So when someone's coming at them, you see them almost like running, and it doesn't look
it's hard to
very.
stand there when someone's swinging at you, and
No, it
like
is.
let
It
me just move
is.
to the
It
side
is.
here, right?
Yeah.
Like,
No, I know. I know. So we're gonna see. It's gonna happen. So
the lateral
uh,
movement, right? It's a big thing, like lateral movement.
the lateral
Uh,
move, yeah, because the
you
whole
don't
thing
want to
is
just
if they
move
don't.
straight backward and
Yeah,
forward.
you're gonna hit.
Yeah.
My whole point is you're gonna hit me. It's just they're not gonna be clean punches. You hitting like the here or
A good
there,
strategy. I'm
or
gonna try it in that way.
you hit mainly the glove too. So when you throw a punch and you hit the glove and my dill, that's when you know
Still
that's
hurts. Still hurts.
coming from Martin Pineapple Pina.
You know. It's a little surprising when you got gloves and a head, and it's still like that rocked my shit. It definitely is one of those. People imagine like you're wearing pillows, right? Like strapped all over, and it is
Oh, is
still
that how you imagine it?
violent, right?
Well, I think um also in addition, Martin, to we need a next episode, guys, we're gonna have a little bit more. We're gonna bring in video, some new video of our training, but also um we're going to talk about um shit. We were gonna do an embedded. we need to do an interview. So I need to pretend, and it needs to be like a Brian Gumble, Gumble and Gumble kind of, and it can be parody. I'm gonna do one, and it's gonna be a parody. Like I'm gonna make shit up, okay? But it's gonna be funny. All right. So I'm gonna do one. I'll let you see it, and then you're gonna have to come back with something as well.
And I'm only giving you a little small video sample.
Yeah, that's what they call.
I'll set up the camera in the phone there in the garage. Much, right? I mean, anything I've showed you up to now has just been little bite-sized clips. Trying to be a little cagey sometimes. You keep it a little. Keep some things, to
yourself.
Close to the vest.
Well, this is going to be an interview that we're going to put into our next podcast. I think give you a chance to really bear out your soul to the millions that are going to be watching this fight all around the world. But until then,
and I say this out of concern and care, stretch. We don't overdo it. Wrap your hands. And my Achilles has been barking at me, and I'm like, why does it hurt so much? Well, because you're going down there cold, and you just start working out instead of there's some stretching. I'd hate for this to get sidelined because one of us is.
Oh no, for sure, no, exactly. I don't want it to end in the first round because we pull a muscle or something like that. No.
Or even before the fight, somebody gets hurt. In the buildup.
You're right.
That's what I'm saying. Like
if you get hurt,
that doesn't feel good.
If you can't show up, you lose.
And I'm not gonna. I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna whoop it. That's what's gonna happen.
All right. Well, I might pull a McGregor and have an excuse at the end. Look, I broke my leg. My leg is broken.
My foot was a balloon.
All right. Well, listen. Even though it's fun. And even though we both have, I know we're gonna have immediate rematch clauses, but still doesn't mean in the moment the winner, if they want to, gets to call somebody out, especially if they're in the audience. That would be sweet. And then they'll have to get in line because then you'll be like, oh, well, I'm going to have to exercise or you're going to have to exercise.
Like a contract dispute and all that stuff.
You're going to have to, we'll have to do that. And then what we'll do is we'll get them on the undercard for the next one. Mm-hmm. And then maybe they'll fight the winner.
Maybe if this works out, maybe we can make this like a regular thing.
Yes, it is.
Hopefully,
you can win
with,
you can call out, maybe we can get, what's homeboy's name? Dino. Or for Andy, I hope if Andy's there, I'm gonna call him out. It'll be so much fun because
he's a giant, man.
Andy's got a big ego. He could not say no. He would have to. He'd be trapped into it.
He's a big ego. He's also a very large man.
No, Andy's a big guy, so I wouldn't want to fight him. But if I have headgear and gloves on, I feel a lot better about
aim low, fight dirty.
The chances. For sure.
Just give him the old razzle dazzle,
Oh, by then I'm gonna be undefeated. I'm gonna be on top of the world, man. I'm feeling like I take on anybody. Who's next? Yeah. Who's next? Get in line. Get in line. All right. Well, we're gonna take it. We gotta go, guys. Thanks for joining us. Episode 95, Jamin's Daily. My guest, Martin Pina. My boxing opponent. Remember, we're going to have this charity boxing match. It's going to happen first quarter 2022. So save the date and stay tuned because the best is yet to come.